Hi everyone, John from LookSmart Home Inspections right here in New Jersey, and today I want to talk to you guys about sump pumps. A lot of houses have sump pumps. These guys are important to make sure that your basement doesn't get water. Water infiltration problems are very, very common. We have a lot of basements in New Jersey, so as home inspectors, we're very, very attuned to basement water problems and also how to control water. So today I'm just going to talk about the pump, right? The pump itself and the crock. So the sump pump is designed to pump water out of your basement when you have a rising water table. So during periods of heavy rain, the water table under your house is likely to rise. The water is going to fill this crock, which is the area of least resistance because it's a hole basically in your basement floor. A sump pump is installed inside that crock. It's going to pump the water out, hopefully far away from the house on the outside. So, as home inspectors here in New Jersey, we always look at sump pumps because they're a crucial component of a house, and we want to make sure that they're installed correctly. So, we always want to make sure that the sump pump is not especially old, right? We want to make sure the sump pump is probably less than 10 years old. Any pumps that are less than 10 years old really should be replaced because these pumps now are getting very, very rusted. They can have sediment foul up the pump, and we just really want to make sure that our pump is super reliable. And a lot of times they'll be old. Who replaces their sump pump? You don't really replace it unless it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, then you have a problem. So I would suggest, and home inspectors also should definitely look for older, rusted, poor condition sump pumps, right? We want to make sure that the sump pump in the house is in good condition. The next thing we want to do is make sure that the sump pump crock is actually there. Many, many times as home inspectors, we'll find sump pumps that are just in a hole in the basement floor without a crock. So the crock is actually the basin. A lot of people will call it the pit. So pit, crock, they're all the same thing. So without that crock or basin, sediment is going to enter that pump because there's natural earth, right? And dirt under there. There's gravel and debris and all kinds of stuff in an open hole if you just have a hole that's jackhammered in the corner of your basement. So we want to make sure that we have actually a sump pump basin or crock, and this is going to help filter out that sediment. It's going to not allow as much sediment into the pump as without it. And so we want to make sure that we don't foul up our pump. That's for 100% sure. So we want to make sure, also we want to make sure that our sump pump is deep enough. Many times we'll go into a house and the sump pump is only a foot deep inside the basement floor. That's really not good enough. We want to make sure this sump pump is about 2.5 feet under the basement floor slab. And that will allow enough area and volume for the sump crock to get filled, the pump to engage, and you to pump the water to the outside of the home. Another thing that's often missing is the check valve. So a check valve is installed on the sump pump discharge line. And a sump pump is going to pump water up. So a water column is going to go up and then outside the house. And so when the sump pump disengages or turns off, that water column is going to fall back down. And so what a check valve does is it prevents that water column from filling up the pump crock again and allowing sort of a short cycle system to take place. So we don't want our water to be pumped out, the column come back in, the pump be engaged again, the water go out, and then the pump be engaged again, because this is going to burn out the pump prematurely. So as home inspectors here in New Jersey, we're going to be looking for the sump pump check valve, and that's super, super important. We want to make sure that that for sure exists. And we want to make sure that our pump is actually large enough for the home that, we're going to inspect. So I always like to take a look and see how big a pump we have. If we have a little rinky-dinky pump for a 3,000 square foot home, that's likely not to be sufficient. So we don't want a pump that's too large. We don't want a pump that's too small. We sort of want a Goldilocks type of pump. One that's just right, probably a third of a horsepower, quarter horsepower pump, something like that, for an average size home. Generally speaking, a third of a horsepower would be sufficient. The next thing we want to do is make sure this pump and system has a means to back up, right? So if the power fails, and that's usually during inclement weather, right? So torrential rain, hurricane, whatever, and you don't want your pump not to work. So it's really essential that this pump is backed up in some way. So they can be backed up by a generator, either a whole house generator, a portable style generator that you kind of plug in. They can be backed up with a water flow backup system, or they can be backed up with a battery backup system. Now, some of these systems are better than others. We won't go into detail about them, but it's really important that if you have a house and you're purchasing a home with a sump pump in it, that you back up the pump in some way, because you want that pump to not fail when it's really, really torrential rain. So whatever system you choose, make sure that that's going to work properly. That's super, super important. The next thing we sometimes find is a sump pump is discharging. So there's a sump pump drain line that usually exits outside of the house. And usually this is visible around the foundation. The sump pump drain line should be discharging far away from the house. I mean, not super far away, but I would say about 5 feet minimum away from the home. So if we have sort of this short sump pump discharge line that's discharging too close to the exterior walls, we're kind of negating what the sump pump is for. We really want to make sure that that water pumps out far away from the house, right? So that water close to the foundation doesn't get back into the basement. So this is super, super important. Also, we have to always check that on the outside of the home. And sometimes these sump pump discharges, you really won't be able to see where they're going. Sometimes they go underground to like a dry well or a dispersal field. But listen, most of the pumps you can see where they discharge. And we have to make sure that these lines are, directed away from the foundation walls. The next thing we're going to look at is the pitch of this line. So a lot of times this line outside will be improperly sloped or have an upslope or up pitch. We don't want that. Just like a downspout and a downspout extension or any drain system should be properly sloped away, we also want the sump pump drain line to be properly sloped away. And this is going to prevent debris collection. It's also going to prevent icing conditions inside that line. So if the sump pump discharges and it's got an upslope, water's going to retain in the line, and then the cold weather comes and now your sump pump can't work because this is all obstructed with snow and ice. And so we definitely don't want that also. So these are just a few of the things that New Jersey home inspectors are going to look at when they inspect homes with sump pumps. And it's crucially important that your home inspector and yourself understand how these systems work and to properly know what to look for and the deficiencies with these systems. So if you're buying a house with a sump pump, understand the components of it, understand how this system works. You'll do yourself a great favor, and make sure your New Jersey home inspector is taking a look at that all-important sump pump in the home.